Lead editor David Burdett.
So PlayStation has now acquired Haven Studios, and acquiring studios isn't anything surprising. It's even less surprising because Sony funded this studio from its ground up. What's surprising is the fact of this studio has been a second party to PlayStation for like a year. It's headed by Jade Raymond. Apparently 33% of the employees that are there, they worked at Stadia with her, and then 70% of the employees worked at Ubisoft Montreal with her. So the team has some gelling that's already there. Maybe they're putting out a product, getting a product ready at least a little bit quicker than a lot of teams are right now from the familiarity that they have. But not only that, they're apparently making something that Sony likes a whole lot. Whether or not it's going to be good, who knows? But for Sony to drop the bag because we like the potential of what your product is, that says something at least from Sony leadership. And obviously everybody could be sniffing around or whatnot, but we all know that they've got the first product on lock for exclusivity already. To me, it just says, hey, we really like what you're doing. Here you go. Let's buy you now.
Potential sell stuff, man. Especially if it's coming from a person who's seasoned.
Yep.
That's what that sounds like to me. So it's not that it's like, oh, this, whatever this thing is, has potential. It seems like it's going to be a live service.
Yep.
Almost, to me, it has this is going to be some funky Sims-like game where you can also make your own content, like Sims / Little Big Planet-y type of thing. And Sony's like, yeah, we did a thing like that before. Let's do it again. And this sounds even better. Oh, and your experience. Yeah, we like that.
Yep.
I can understand why they're going for something like that.
I think it's also the whole talent, as we kept talking about in previous things. It's not very easy to get talent right now. So lockdown talent, when you can hold on to talent, even better when they worked together before.
Yeah. It's like sports. When you can get a good team with a great organization together and they all gel in the locker room, good things can happen.
Yep.
Editor Noah Ansaldua.
Elden Ring and I have been putting this little guy to the test. We've been going at him for hours and hours on end every single day. And every time I tell him it's about to be over, he can relax soon. I'm like, wait, what if I go into this other dungeon and see where that leads me? And then I'm like, I get on every day, I say, I'm going to do this in Elden Ring. And then immediately I'm like, oh, what's that over there? And then I go off and explore a whole other section of the map for like hours. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess that's all the time for gaming today. And then the next day I'm saying, all right, I'll do that tomorrow. And then I never get to it. And it's amazing. I love that feeling.
Yeah, I never expected that from you, Mr. Destiny Man.
I do play other games.
Well, before we even started this podcast, you were like, I don't know how often I'll be able to play other games.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because you're so into Destiny, and
Yeah.
rightfully so. Like, that's your jam. That's fine. But to see you sink your fingers into Elden Ring this way,
He got on the
kind of
sauce,
exciting,
man.
actually.
He
Yeah.
got on the sauce.
I guess the one thing I am, I don't know if scared is the right way to put it, but I feel like, what if I play Elden Ring and I like it? Like, what then? That would probably take up a whole show.
It's true.
My name is Anthony Shelton, YouTube content creator and writer. And so before we hopped on, Noah, you posted something in the Discord in our little chat where a woman and her mate are in the hospital awaiting a baby. And the picture is taken from the woman lying in bed waiting for this baby with a guy, with her mate, sitting in the chair facing the television screen with his console plugged into the TV with the Elden Ring title screen on the TV. And it says he literally brought Elden Ring to the delivery room. And as a person who has been in the delivery room and has now understood the stories and how long it can take for a baby to come, I totally get it. And apparently she was down too, because she was like, this baby probably going to take a while to come. All right, I get it. You literally did it. So let me put this in context. You know you're going to the hospital. You know this baby is going to come. You're going to have to pack blankets, pillows, snacks, all kinds of stuff. He also took the time to pack the console. So this was a deliberate decision supported by the lady. And you know what? It is funny, but my wife would never let me do that. So
Mine neither.
fellas, don't get any ideas in your head. All right, let's move on to our icebreaker segment. Simple question. Noah, we'll start with you. What is the best thing you've bought this year?
This is kind of a cop-out because I didn't buy it for myself, but I did get this for Christmas, this green screen. And I think this green screen is probably my favorite thing that I've had this year, that I've gotten. In the past few months, I love it so much. I've been using it every day, like more than, anything else that I have. So yeah, I'm gonna go with this green screen.
So basically, if you could have bought it, it would have been your best purchase.
It would have been, yeah.
Makes sense. David?
Yeah.
Well, since it hasn't got here yet, I can't say the Steam Deck. So I am very excited for that to come in. It's probably a close tie, actually, for me for this year, because the Horizon Forbidden West Collector's Edition is awesome, fantastic. But, and this, I guess this kind of counts for this year, even though I'd bought some of it before, GFuel. I made the decision to switch over from drinking a lot of sugary energy drinks that were probably not doing me any favors, and switching over to something that would help me drink more water. And that has definitely been very helpful because I can put it into my water. Not game fuel, G fuel, the powder stuff that you put into your water.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So it's been very helpful this year in helping me to drink a lot more water and a lot less soda.
Enter creator code SPLITEND89
If only.
Your next purchase of G Fuel, make sure you type in SPLITEND89 and you'll get 10% off your next G Fuel purchase. No, not really. Don't do that. I don't even know if you could do that.
You could try. It won't work.
Yeah, you could try. Perhaps by the end of this podcast, we might have a deal. The best thing I've bought this year, let me tell you, at some point you just get to a point where everything is just regular adulting. A mattress. A nice, really comfortable mattress.
Yep.
This is the best thing I bought this year so far. And man, it's been worth it. Much more comfortable. Don't get as hot at night. It's great. That's all I can say. And if you've ever bought a brand new mattress and you actually got it tailor-made for you, you understand the feeling. And judging by both of your faces, I don't think you've had that feeling. So let me tell you, get it when you need a new mattress, get one tailor-made just for you. It's expensive, but it's worth it. It's worth it. You gonna sleep better.
Believe it.
All right, let's move on into our trending news segment. There is a new Witcher in development officially. CD Projekt RED had made an announcement that the next Witcher is in development, and it will be using the Unreal Engine. It's supposed to be a new saga. And that's pretty much all the information that they've given to us regarding it. So, fellas, let's start with Noah. What's your reaction to it?
I mean, I want to be very cautious about getting hyped about this game. I see the medallion of the school of the cat, I believe, and that does stir something in me. It does want to get me excited, but like at the same time, I'm like Cyberpunk or CDPR just fixed Cyberpunk, and it's still not where I'd like it to be. Um, and I see a lot of people getting hyped about it already, about this new Witcher saga, and I would urge caution in getting hyped about another CDPR thing, just because they've let us down, or maybe they didn't let you down specifically, but they did not fulfill their promises to the people. So seeing that they're already like, all right, well, let's move on. Let's draw up hype for a new game that we have no idea how far it's in development. We don't know. Well, it's in Unreal Engine 5, so I think you can already say that it's probably not that far in development.
Not at all.
Yeah. So I, I don't know about this. I really don't. I hope that we see some things from it, and I hope that I can trust it. But I don't even think that seeing like gameplay demos would even make me believe that this game is anything worth sinking time into. And I don't think I will until I see reviews that say, yeah, this game is worth it. This game's a big turnaround from Cyberpunk. This re-establishes CDPR as the studio we've always wanted them to be, that they were. And I also want to talk about how Witcher 3 was not the game it is at launch. It was a buggy mess. It was really similar to Cyberpunk 2077 at launch. And CDPR has the ability to manipulate the media in such a way that almost by the end of the cycle of that game, it doesn't matter. Like, that game is iconic because it is. That game is beautiful and great, and I love that game so much. And that's why I'm really scrutinizing them here. And I want this next Witcher game to be amazing.
So you said it was like Cyberpunk when it came out. It was that bad? I don't remember.
It was a buggy mess. It may have not been Cyberpunk levels, but it was a mess.
Okay.
It was unplayable on PC. Literally unplayable on PC.
So basically the opposite of what happened with Cyberpunk. Unplayable on, well, I guess not completely unplayable on consoles, but especially last gen consoles.
Yeah.
And fine on PCs.
Yeah, it was buggy. There were issues. It wasn't like where Cyberpunk where you were just upset all the time. It was more almost Skyrim level bugs with maybe a little bit on the bad side.
Bethesda type of stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't like as fundamentally broken as as Cyberpunk was, and it wasn't like they didn't make the game that they promised. Like, it was definitely like The Witcher 3. It was a progression of The Witcher 2, and it was a better game. It's just that at launch there were a lot of problems that they had to address, and it shows that the pattern of it, I think, shows that they do release games that are not finished and that they know are not finished. And I would like them to break that pattern with this next one.
Well, I think the one thing that will help that pattern, and it's going to take some time, we're going to have to see if they can adjust to it, if they can learn it. Moving to Unreal Engine 5 is a really good chance at them being able to fix the wrongs. Red Engine is arguably Creation Engine, just in another form. Same thing as Bethesda always dealt with all these bugs, all these problems, all these issues. There's using a proprietary engine is fine, but when you keep seeing the same problems with each release, a lot of that will boil down to engine. The tools you are using to build this game, there's something fundamentally wrong with, where it's not helping you identify what could be potential problems, whatnot. And Unreal is tested. Unreal is true. We haven't seen Unreal really used in a ton of open world games, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of them have been a little bit different. With this, it's going to be a big open world game, so we're going to have to see how Unreal Engine can handle all of this. But if they can figure that out, this can be a really clean launch for them for the first time. I'm not worried as much on the story content. I think they'll figure that out. They've done a great job working with the people behind the Witcher IP to make a good story. I don't know. The combat, I assume it'll be just fine. Unreal is fine with combat, all these different things. I'm not worried about the structure, so to speak, of the game. I'm interested to see what the foundation is that ends up laid with switching over to this engine. If they can learn it, if they can figure it out, it'll be great. If not, the whole structure will fall down. That's really the biggest thing, is all the stuff around the foundation. I'm not worried about. I'm worried about the foundation, which is kind of like you said, it's right to be cautious, because if you can't build that right, everything else falls apart. The
That's what
other
this announcement.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, the other thing that's interesting is the whole Geralt is not the main character for this one. One of the things I was talking with Benji Sales about, we were talking about what they're going to do. A lot of people are yelling Siri, which makes sense. But I think it makes even more sense to do a create your own Witcher, because people will go nuts over that concept. People love creating their own characters, having that grab them, and especially since they've already done it in Cyberpunk, I don't see why you don't do something similar. Maybe even create a character from the school of Cat. So
Yeah, I think that could work, because I'm not as familiar with The Witcher at all, but
I'm not either. I'm just going on what they said.
Right. The School of Cat stuff, Noah, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, there's different schools. This one, the Cat, I mean, it's basically a training facility for different Witchers. Would that be correct?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So I could see that happening, where you are a up and coming Witcher. You're particularly in the School of Cat, and you get to basically, create your own Witcher, and, abilities, skills, however they want to divvy all that stuff up, and, go on whatever adventure is set before you. I think that might be interesting, especially if Geralt has cameos and, other, big characters from the series have cameos, like that would, or even, prominent roles. That would be interesting for a lot of people. Which makes me wonder, how much does it matter if Geralt isn't the main character, though? Like, he's been the staple for a long time. Would people be okay with Geralt not being the main character, since, that's what The Witcher is? What do you guys think, Noah?
As like a big fan of the books, which really dive into Geralt's character a lot more than I think like things like The Witcher 3 does, and the show, I'm not like, when I think of my time with The Witcher 3, I think of like a lot of spoilery things, and I'm just going to spoil it, and I think the game's been out long enough.
Go ahead.
The Baron's like suicide, or his like kind of, redemption. I think of how I let a city die, or how I did this blood ritual to accidentally kill a village, and I'm like, oh no. I don't really think about Geralt in that. I think about my decisions and how they affected the world. And while I love Geralt as a character, and I love like his voice, especially in the video games, like it's really great. I'm not sure that I need my Witcher to have Geralt in it, just because there's like a wealth of great characters in this world that they could pull from, or that you could do the create a character out, and you could still see those characters from like the books and things show up. And this is like a really great chance to build the universe outside of just the established canon in the games, and bring in like more of the book references, things that people want to see. Or
it kind of sounds like at some point, like, Geralt's character matters for like the main story, but at some point, because there's so much to do in the game, like, Geralt is not actually a necessary component of the entire game. He's just the character you're controlling at some points.
Yeah, because if you're going to tell the story without Geralt, and it's still going to be a Witcher story, the author of the books might have like a problem with that, but he obviously doesn't, because he's like, from the interviews I've seen of him, he's a very money-driven person, and he's probably so at some point, I don't think it really matters. I think if the story is good and it pays respect to the original material, then people are going to love it. Yeah, I think that you don't need Geralt because in the end, he really is kind of like in the games especially, he is kind of like a blank slate that we put our stuff on however we want to make him act.
So my reaction to this when I read it, again, having no Witcher experience, moving to Unreal Engine felt like, oh, they're doing this so they make sure the next game isn't busted. Like that's what this decision is. They're like, okay, we had Cyberpunk 2077, we had the Witcher problems. Cyberpunk 2077 obviously being the most the worst and I think the most mainstream problem that they've experienced. And man, like from the get-go, they're like, frick, like we can't do this anymore. Let's team up with Unreal. Let's do that. They have a stable engine that we could probably use and change up in ways, and I think that's a smart decision. Why leave it up to the chance again that you're going to have to update your engine over the course of the development? Technology is going to change. I doubt this game is going to come within the next 3 years, probably 4 or 5. So, I mean, you can expect a technological change every 5 years. So, why would you want to deal with that when you know Epic is keeping Unreal up to date in so many different ways? Like, I don't know how they do it, but they do such a fantastic job of moving Unreal Engine along with emerging technology. And you don't have to deal with that as much anymore. You can just rely on Epic to help you out, get you straight. You figure out how you want to use the engine, make the tweaks you want to make, and release the game, develop the game. Like, there's less stress. They're over here talking about they're not going to crunch. I don't know if that's going to be actually true, because if this announcement is used as a means to get people to join the developer, of course you're going to say, yeah, we're not going to crunch. So, you know, they got all these good vibes right now, all of the idea like, wow, we're trying to not have as much stress over the development of this game. We still want it to be good. And again, Cyberpunk 2077, I think in a concept is good. In execution, it's awful.
Yep.
So I'm personally confident that CD Projekt RED will make a fine whatever Witcher game this will be. Just like David said, will this foundation suck or will it be good? And I think Unreal Engine will help them make a better finished product. Now, at this point, Cyberpunk 2077, I think, has put CD Projekt RED in the spotlight, whether good or bad, in ways that they haven't been even with The Witcher. And so, do you guys think, whether in your eyes or do you think in the eyes of other people, is CD Projekt RED at this point your typical AAA studio, your Ubisoft kind of studio, your EA, where they say all this stuff, but they're still going to just, chase the dollars. They're going to put out mediocre products at launch and they fix things later. What do you guys think about CD Projekt RED in this form?
I'm probably 70-30 that they are. Like, I think there are probably a lot of them, especially hearing what I don't remember if it's the game designer, or what role he played, but that one developer who actually took the time to say all these things about Cyberpunk that weren't really true. He was kind of defending the game, and I think there are people there that do care, but I think there are a lot of people there that just the success of The Witcher 3, whatnot, once you start getting those dollars, it's hard not to want to keep grabbing more of them. And they're kind of 70-30, at least in my opinion there.
I will say that they're taking the Witcher IP and they're milking it for everything it's worth, like a normal, typically AAA studio would. Like, you can look at the Thronebreaker card games, you can look at the live service Gwent game. So in that way, they are, but you kind of have to in this day and age. If you're a big studio, you kind of have to make those live service games or those spin-off, single player Thronebreaker games that use the Gwent. But in the way that I'm not liking is that, yeah, they release these games, they overpromise, and they don't, they kind of leave it as it is for a while. But I feel like what differentiates them still, even at this point, even with how down I am on them, they did turn around and at least make massive improvements to Cyberpunk 2077. They're not for me, those improvements. That they don't entice me to go play that game. But they did spend, a lot of time fixing it and trying to get back that those like consumer expectations that they have of them. And I think that's good. But I don't think it's enough for me to say that like they're either one. And I feel like this is like a turning point. Like this next Witcher game will show me that it's like, okay, they're just EA. Okay, they're just Ubisoft. But I feel like they have a great opportunity here with The Witcher if they like improve, like not just on showing that they can do better than Cyberpunk, but showing that they can make a better Witcher game with like improved combat, improved exploration, and like because The Witcher 3 is a great game, but exploration and combat specifically, I feel like could be tuned up to like like a FromSoft level or better than that. And if they do that, I think that this game could be like the next Elden Ring or one of those games that we look to as like a milestone in gaming.
And Horizon 4 will launch right before it.
That's right. Yeah.
Because we know it won't be Horizon 3 because this thing's going to take forever to come out. We already saw this with Cyberpunk 2077 when they announced it in 12, 13. I can't remember which one. It's been that long. It took them 7 to 8 years to put this thing out. This thing ain't. We're gonna be playing this on PS6 and whatever the heck bad name Xbox decides to name their next console.
Well, that was actually one of my questions. When do you think we can expect this game, especially since they are advertising that CDPR will not have crunch?
You might as well forget about it for now, just like we all did with Cyberpunk.
So yeah, like this is the same thing they did with Cyberpunk, like you mentioned. I think it was announced in 2013, maybe 2012 actually. I think it might have been 2012 because I went to E3 2013 and I don't think it was that. So I think it was 2012. So they're doing the same thing again with The Witcher. Super early. You don't have to make an announcement like this to get people to join your studio, right? You could just put out, hey, studios do it all the time. We're making a new game. We need this, that, and the other. Let the people speculate. Let us speculate what it could be. But you don't have to announce this. So are they setting themselves up to fail again? Because I feel like that's exactly what they're doing by repeating the exact... Now, I will say this. I feel like maybe it's not a situation where you look back at the problem with Cyberpunk 2077 and you survey the land and go, man, what were the problems? Oh, man, we announced it too early. Like, at the end of the day, like, that's probably not the thing that went wrong at the end of the day. Like, oh, my gosh, we announced this thing so early. So maybe that's the direction they were coming from. That wasn't the problem with Cyberpunk 2077 ultimately. But coming off the heels of Cyberpunk 2077, I feel like this doesn't look as good for the, I guess, hype of The Witcher. What do you guys think?
I've got two thoughts. One specifically on what you said about the pulling devs. I think it kind of does that because you're fighting with other studios right now for devs. There's a big worker shortage in the industry, and they are somewhat of a AAA studio at this point. You're having to fight for it. So am I the studio that just made Cyberpunk, or am I the studio that's making The Witcher?
That's a good point.
So, but then I go from that, on that same thought, CD Projekt RED is trying to make sure the public is thinking this is the studio that's making the next Witcher game, not the studio that just fixed the big piece of crap that was Cyberpunk at launch. It's
nobody's
changing.
forgetting that, though.
Oh, yeah. And they aren't but if you can at least get them thinking about the next game rather than the failure that you just endured, because right now it's good stuff in mind. Oh, they put out a better version of Cyberpunk 2077. Oh, they're making the next Witcher game. It does at least string some positives together so that you're looking at them differently. And then when they do go silent, when they do come out with the next trailer, it's like, oh, this is the studio that announced Witcher that just fixed Cyberpunk.
So this is where I feel like it doesn't work as well coming off the back of Cyberpunk 2077 because they're still fixing the game, right? So you announce this now, and yes, for a time, guess what we're talking about? We're talking about The Witcher, but we're still talking about Cyberpunk 2077 at the same time. So we're not forgetting, but at the same time, later, while The Witcher's being developed, there's going to be more Cyberpunk content, fixes, patches, and it's going to get people remembering, oh, this is CD Projekt RED, the people who came out with Cyberpunk 2077. So I don't feel like it has the same impact as it did when, or as it could if Cyberpunk 2077 didn't have such a unsuccessful launch.
And I feel like that it does make sense on our side. I don't know that the casual audience, I think it affects the casual audience in a different way. People who are dropping a lot of those dollars, I think they will be the ones that are going to be affected more by this. And that, like I said, just my 2 cents on seeing that side of it. But we, of course, dwell a lot more on that kind of stuff compared to the casual audience.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Let's move on to our next story.
Sorry, Noah, I stole your thunder, I think.
Oh, did you want to say something else, Noah? Go for it.
Just the last thing I was going to say is, like, you can see the manipulation in this announcement right now.
Yeah.
At this time, it's a critical juncture between we fixed Cyberpunk. It's the game that we said it was kind of, and we're about to have this expansion that's free. So we're going to get that goodwill too. And then we're going to show you footage of The Witcher, maybe, or a trailer or some sort of CGI thing. I don't know, anything like that. And then that's going to get the hype rolling. And exactly like David says, for the casual community, that may not like tie them directly, that may not say, oh, CD Projekt RED, that's the people that made Cyberpunk 2077. Like, there's a whole community of people who've not played Cyberpunk 2077 that were never interested in it, but dug the fantasy genre and said, I'm going to pick up The Witcher, and they loved it. So it's exactly that, you know.
And this is coming off the back of Elden Ring, a fantasy game. Everyone's thinking fantasy right now.
There's a lot of marketing prowess going into this, and that's why it's like...
Yeah, but Witcher and Elden Ring are just two completely different beasts, and even the casual audience, I think, is smart enough to know that.
Yeah, it's just that with, you know, with the wide acclaim of Elden Ring and the, like, how many people have picked it up, it's like, yeah, I'm like, I see this, I'm going to definitely hop on the coattails and see if we can get some fans.
Yep.
Like new ones, I guess.
Yeah, I can understand taking that marketing leap. All right. During GDC, Phil Spencer, and I'm basically just reading the headline, you know, Phil Spencer says he's not using Game Pass to squeeze out other developers. I found this article on GameSpot. Squeeze out other developers or force them to be a part of Game Pass, which I think is a fascinating statement to make, considering the push that Xbox is trying to make with Game Pass. I mean, everything is Game Pass. You could get Game Pass for $1. Game Pass is, you know, you could get Ultimate and play on your PC. You can play on, we're going to try to make it on every device possible. And yet, at the same time, they still want to make room for retail to have success and, you know, obviously buying Xbox games in retail, and make room for any other format that people can buy games. Are you buying this from Phil Spencer at all? David, let's start with you.
I think it's really funny the way that, and I only caught the snippet where he was talking about it, so there may have been more context.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I thought it was really funny. Oh, just kind of cut off it. People say blah 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 blah, and I say no, we're not doing that. And then it kind of moves on with the way that I'm like, That's it. There's no exposition.
Yeah.
So either somebody was really having fun with where they cut that intentionally, or there was more, or that's really all he said, and he didn't really get into it. I don't think they're squeezing developers on this. It helps people find games that they probably wouldn't have ever touched. It's changing the way we view video games is the key component here, and it changes the way we view them specifically on the Xbox platform. It's something Xbox needed because they were having a lot of issues with that, and content is king. So it's really Game Pass. I remember signing up for it when it first became a thing. It was awful. Like the selection of games were just, there was no reason.
Yeah.
And when they announced the whole, oh hey, our first party games are gonna hit this, suddenly I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna spend
that
probably
$1, sure.
Yeah, I was like, I'll probably spend $60 twice in a year on my Xbox for first party Xbox games. So might as well go ahead and do this, because at that point it was just the $10, $120. I already had Xbox Live for a long time, so I was good to go. So then it's kept evolving, becoming a better and better service. I think it depends on the game more than anything. I think it works out for Xbox because they don't care about retail sales at this point. They want engagement. Who's subbing to Game Pass, who's engaging with the games. That's what they're kind of predicating all this on, is how that works. And I'm very interested, especially with Starfield, to see how this works, because it's going to sell like crazy on Steam. How's this game going to sell on Xbox? Are people going to buy it, or is it just going to be, oh, I've got a Game Pass subscription, there's no reason to actually purchase this? I think the engagement is going to be astronomical, but we are in a point where we literally have to look at video games in a different way than we've ever looked at them, at least on this platform. And depending on what PlayStation does with Spartacus, we may start looking at it a bit differently on their platform as well. I think it'll be a while before their games are day one, but I think there's an actual path to PlayStation ending up with day one games there, no matter how they want to fight it. It's just the way the industry is changing.
I do believe Phil Spencer to a degree here. If you look at what PlayStation did, this is an extremely small example, but the principle is the same. Rocket League was released on PlayStation Plus, and it blew that game up.
Yes.
Psyonix recognized Rocket League would not be what it is right now if it were not released on PlayStation Plus. Fall Guys, exact same thing. Fall Guys releases on PlayStation Plus day one, takes off. Game Pass is a bigger version of those two games for anybody who decides to be a part of Game Pass. And I think people believe that Microsoft brings this huge bag of money and you can't resist being on Game Pass. And it's like, no, that's not the case. Microsoft is doing that probably because they believe that your game will be good, and so it will benefit them. So they do want to bring a nice chunky bag for you.
Oh yeah.
So that way you're hopefully fairly compensated. We don't have numbers on those kind of deals, but I imagine if a developer, didn't believe it was a good deal, like they wouldn't go for it. So the only people who are being forced to release their games on Game Pass are Microsoft studios. That's it. Everybody else, it's a matter of choice.
Yep.
And yes, I'm not going to ignore the fact that choice can be manipulated by money. I'm not going to suggest that's not a thing, but I think anybody who has decided to put their games on Game Pass has done it with the acknowledgement that we can get more eyes on our game if we do this in the same way Psyonix did with Rocket League, in the same way, oh my gosh, who developed Fall Guys? The developers for Fall Guys put their game on PlayStation Plus. It's the exact same thing. We just look at it differently because Xbox has a ton of games.
Yep.
But any game that's huge, Guardians of the Galaxy now on Game Pass, you can go play it right now. Now more eyes can see that game because Square Enix recognizes, oh, shoot, we screwed up with our marketing and it didn't meet our quota.
Yep.
So we can put it on Game Pass and get even more eyes and hopefully people will buy it, which, according to Phil Spencer, 50%, it's 50% of people buy more when they enjoy a game on Game Pass or something along those lines.
Sarah Bond said Game Pass subscribers spend 50% more than non-members.
Spend 50% more. There, thank you. So, yeah, I don't think Phil Spencer's trying to squeeze out retail. If you want to buy retail, go buy retail. That's fine. If you don't, obviously Game Pass is not a retail service. So, like, if you're not into the subscription thing, you can still buy retail. They're just trying to make sure that the value you get when you subscribe is there and it's there consistently.
Yep.
Noah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to point out in the article on GameSpot by Eddie Makuch, Eddie McCoo. Sorry about that. Sarah Bond also says that engagement in a particular title goes about 8 times when it's added to Game Pass versus where it was before joining the program. So that sounds like
believable because again, we saw what happened with Rocket League and Fall Guys.
Yeah, exactly. So you see games that even if they're not released, even if they have released and they're not on Game Pass, it's such you can do your retail thing, you can see how many things you can sell, and then you don't even have to say, hey, we're going to go on Game Pass, but we're going to release today, and then we're going to be on Game Pass in a few months. If you just put it on Game Pass after the fact, you get the best of both worlds. You get people who buy it at the beginning, and then you get people who discover it later on. And I think that's a really enticing point of Game Pass. You don't have to do day one Game Pass. And you can just be one of the releases that say what's next month in Game Pass, and you see that screen grab on the graphic, and you're like, okay, I'll play that. And I think that's great. And I think for me specifically, speaking anecdotally, Nobody Saves the World, I never would have played that game, but I heard you talk about it, and I was like, well, if it was just you talking about it and I had to shell $20 out, I wouldn't. But if it's you talking about it and I can just download it, and it's like a 300 megabyte download, I'm like, okay, yeah, hell yeah, I'm going to download that, I'm going to play it, and that game's great. I can put however many hours into it I want without feeling like, oh, I didn't get my money's worth out of that game, and that's a good feeling. Because I feel like for a lot of people, they want to get their money's worth, they want to get their hours worth out of a certain game. And Game Pass kind of gets that out of the way. Yeah, and I don't think you need to pressure people into, I buy Spencer's, statement completely, because you don't need to pressure people when the numbers are right there. If you want people to be playing your game, well, Game Pass drives that engagement by 8 times. That's insane. And I think it's worth it.
To be fair, they can manipulate the numbers the same way, financial people can manipulate the books, to put out the numbers that they want. So I want to.
They can cherry pick.
Yeah, they absolutely could cherry pick. So I don't want to, over here hey, we're championing corporation stuff.
And
but
that's why they're pushing. So go ahead.
No, yeah. You say what you want to say.
Oh, I was just saying that that's why engagement's so important to them, because then they can point to those numbers.
And I think
those numbers are probably realistic.
Yeah,
I think if you're a studio, that's in talks with Xbox to maybe put your game on Game Pass, you're gonna see not just the buzzwords, not just the things, this is what we can do for you, and really cherry picked stats. You're gonna see everything. If you're seriously courting Xbox for that type of thing. So all these games that we have seen go on to Game Pass that are not first parties, I think we can take from that yeah, these smart studio heads and corporate executives at other places saw that this was a good move for them. So I don't think we just have to go off of their buzzwords and their corporate talk at Xbox, but we can also look at everyone else and see that they're not lying. And I think that that kind of speaks for itself.
And you had to imagine that when Microsoft, in the process of acquiring ZeniMax and all of Activision Blizzard King. Like, they had to go into what their plan is with Game Pass and how they'll benefit as well, like as a whole when they're absorbed, and how that could still work for them. So to your point, Noah, like, you can look at the studios who are willing to go along with this and see, okay, yeah, there is something to this. They're probably not, like, from our eyes, they're probably not lying about these numbers. Maybe a little embellishment here and there, who knows? But for the most part, studios continually keep putting stuff on there that has to mean something.
Yep.
To us. All right. Let's talk about some video games specifically. Our apples to apples segment. All right. This is where we try to score points by describing the game that somebody's played, and hopefully, just like apples to apples, they pick the word that we say, or in most of the cases, words. So, here's the current score breakdown. David has 6 points. Noah is crushing with 9 points, and I also have 6 points. So, let's start with David. What have you been playing?
Been playing a little bit of Marvel's Avengers, actually. Before everybody starts making fun of me, I picked up the collector's edition at launch, played about an hour or so, then decided I was just going to wait for the next gen patch. And obviously, with anything like that, you end up in a point where you're like, there's a bunch of other games that are out and I need to play them. So I've been looking for something to just kind of, no thought, just play. And Marvel's Avengers fit the bill.
All right. My 3 words are, why would you? Marvelous failure and decent single player. Noah, what are your 3 words or phrases, whatever?
Mine are you okay? Bring me pictures of Spider-Man, exclusive to PlayStation. Avengers Endgame, more like Avengers Dead Game, am I right?
Ooh. All right.
That's really tough. That's tough because Noah's pretty on point with some of those fun things. I'm actually going to give it to Anthony because decent single player. It's actually a really, it's actually a good single player. People,
it is.
People trash. Good. People trash on this game so hardcore, and it does not deserve. And yeah, but it doesn't deserve half the crap it got in the end, at least, because they actually supported it. I can go in there and there are 3 completely free expansions for me to play for this game. And people were upset at launch about this thing. So they kept at it. They kept putting out the content. Who knows if we actually get any other content on this game at this point, which is kind of sad because I think they had plans past it, but because that would explain why we got Spider-Man and we haven't heard like a peep. But who knows? We may never see anything else of it. I like that they tried this though, because there was at least a chance it could have been, the multiplayer aspect could have been a lot better than it was. And I like some of the choices, especially like not many games give you the ability to be able to change an outfit without completely messing up your stats. And they actually focus on, hey, people hate that. Let's put it so you can change costumes and it doesn't actually mess up anything else. But it's a good fun game to play.
Do that.
Wasn't worth the money I spent on the collector's edition, but that Cap statue is at least real nice.
I was banking on you being done with the single player. I was banking on that because then it would have been easy.
Hey, you almost got me with the bring me pictures of Spider-Man exclusive to PlayStation. that about had me rolling.
I was gonna say you haven't gotten to the expansions yet, I'm sure. So now the question will be for you, if you even get that far.
I think I will. It's
How
becoming
good
one of
are
those.
they?
It's becoming one of those sit
question.
down. It's become one of those sit down, play an hour through a mission, and just go about the rest of my evening.
Yeah, but I do agree. The single player is actually pretty decent. Like I left with that. I was like, I enjoyed playing the single player. Like it was good action, fun, decent story. Not bad at all. Noah, what have you been playing?
I've been playing another superhero game. If you have a, a fun understanding of superhero, Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3, released on the
God.
PS2 many years ago.
Nice.
Jeez, throwback. All right. My 3 words are wait, where's Destiny? Ah! And best Dragon Ball Dragon Ball Z fighting game. Noah or David, what are your 3 words?
I went with Kamehameha, bruh.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought Destiny had the spirit bomb. And fantastic fighting.
Okay.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go with because that's
literally an
That's
episode
Budokai.
right there.
that is Dragon Ball Z, and I love it. I love it so much. And you can do if you hold guard and press back twice and hold it down, you can just sit there and charge up.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing, and it's also a vital way to play the game. I love it. Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3, I played it like a lot when I was younger. A funny memory with Budokai 2 specifically was that my uncle was playing, and he was like in high school, and I would go to my grandma's on like the weekends, and he would be there. And I was like, "Can I play Budokai 2?" And he's like, "Sure, but just like don't overwrite my save file." And I was like, "Yeah, I got you." And then I was like playing, and then I had to get off. And I was like, "Did you say overwrite a save file, or did you say not overwrite a save file?" I didn't know what that meant at that point, so I was like, "All right, okay, so overwrite." It's like, look, yes, all of his progress was gone. I think he was on like the Boo Saga, so he was like at the end of the game.
Oh no.
And it was bad.
Yeah, that's real bad.
But I've had a great time with it. I've been like playing it on emulator because it's an old ass game, and I don't have my PS2 with me. But it's a great game. I love it. The music is so good. It's like at the Kai level of like animation, like with the opening scene, which is really great. All the characters look nice and shiny, and playing the game, it's actually like surprisingly more complex than I thought it was. Like you can actually do some combos that I didn't realize were there, and I just kind of like brute forced it before. It's actually got a really complex sort of leveling system too. And it gives me FromSoft vibes in that it doesn't tell you anything about what each stat does. You just kind of have to, guess your way through it. And that's cool too. I've been using the manual, like a GameFAQs, like old-fashioned thing that I dug up. So it's pretty cool.
I remember the 8 matches that I did play. They taught me how to, charge up. And we would just sit there doing that just for the freaking fun of it. We'd just be like, everybody just doing that every once in a while. That right there is just a lot of fun. All right, I've been playing Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which by the time this video comes out is fully launched. It launches 9 p.m. tonight here on the Pacific. Tomorrow everywhere else. It's really all the same time. But that's what I've been playing. David, what are your 3 words for me?
I went with sliding in the DMs. Get it? Play on. Hilarious hot fantasy hijinks and good old cel-shaded grind.
Okay. Noah?
Looter shooter addiction much? Borderlands builds have never been better, and devs rolled an ad 20 with this one.
I like that one. Nah, this one's pretty easy. I'm gonna have to go with sliding in the DMs. that was pretty good.
I thought it was pretty clever.
I'll give that one to you. Well, what's funny is we recorded 3 of us, well, actually 4 of us playing. Our editor-in-chief, Ron, myself, David Flynn, who reviewed the game, gave it a 90, and one of our other writers, Abdul. And one of the things that we brought up was how they're sliding in the game, and we kept referencing our lead editor, David, who we confirmed, he would probably play this game because they're sliding. So sliding in the DMs was actually
That's pretty good.
I didn't even think about. What's funny is I had no idea there was sliding in the game, so that worked even better.
Wow.
I was mainly going
so
on
that
the
worked really well for you.
I was mainly going on the DM for Dungeon Master.
And that's why it worked, because it is sliding and sliding in the DM.
Nice. That's awesome.
Like, okay,
that's awesome.
And you didn't even try to do that.
Nope.
That's nuts. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a Borderlands game. And depending on who you are, that's either really great or it's another Borderlands game. I think it's great. I think it's better than Borderlands 3. And I played a ton of Borderlands 3, and eventually it just the one thing I hated about ended up really disliking over time with Borderlands 3 was just how much loot there was and how much you didn't pay attention to it, especially the legendaries, because there were so many world drops. World drops meaning, if you're unfamiliar, there are places where you can fight a boss, for example, and that boss has very specific loot. But that specific loot is diluted by a bunch of other loot that you can get anywhere else. And so you're seeing all these shiny legendaries pop out of the boss, and you check every one, and it's like every time it's like, oh my gosh, I've seen this gun, oh my god. So it's not like you don't get the legendary, you are fooled with a whole bunch of legendaries. And so you end up checking them, and it's like, oh, this is really annoying. Whereas Borderlands 2 is just like, you get the legendary or you don't, or you might get another legendary, but you're not like exploded with a bunch of legendaries. Wonderlands tones that down quite a bit. And I haven't gotten totally into like the tougher difficulty version of Endgame, but I haven't seen that many legendaries, which is really refreshing because it makes legendaries feel special again. So I like that a lot. What happens later in the game, Endgame, I don't know, but I do find it fascinating that there's no way to play the campaign over again. There's no true Fate Maker mode or anything like that. So you play the campaign once and that's it. Your end game is completely what's called the Chaos Chamber, which is basically they throw you in a small arena with 8 levels and you have to kill a bunch of enemies. And each level you get a different buff or debuff, and that makes each run a little more challenging. So it's actually a lot of fun. I don't know how long it will last as an end game component, the only end game component, but it is fun. It's fascinating. I'll probably be playing with a friend who's going to get, unlock the game tonight. But I'm enjoying it. I think the campaign, because it's smaller and shorter, works better than what Borderlands 3 had. It had a bunch of fluff to it. This campaign is tight. You could debate whether you like the dialogue and the jokes and stuff, but it moves. It flows. It doesn't feel like there's a bunch of arbitrary content to extend the length of the game. By the time I was feeling like this should be over, it was over. And so that felt really good. And you can move on. You can do more side quests. You can do all this other stuff. So that's nice. It's also got this nice overworld, which is like a tabletop game. Like it looks like a board, like a Mario Party board without the actual like movement spaces. You can move fully. But it's pretty creative and fun. It's got its own side quests. It's got its own little stuff to collect. It's interesting. It's not just a place where you just go from A to B and, it's even got random encounters. Like it's full tall grass like Pokemon. Like it's really interesting. So I like it. I worry about the end game. I'm enjoying the end game, but I worry that I'm going to get tired of it faster than I got tired of Borderlands 3's end game. But I think it's worth playing, especially if you enjoy looter shooters. Making builds has been fantastic. I really like the weapon variety, the perk variety. There's not nearly as many guns as Borderlands 2 or 3. So it feels like thousands of guns instead of millions or billions. But that kind of works in your favor also. But you also see a lot of the same loot. So it's kind of like it's one of those things just like, oh, there's not enough variety, but it's nice to not be so convoluted with just stuff. So there's balance, but I like it. I feel like it's a better package than the pre-sequel was, which is about the same size as Wonderland. So I think it's worth at least checking out if you get the chance. And if you're a Borderlands fan, yeah, just play it. It's good. All right. So, David, what are you working on?
I have had the wonderful people at Arcade One Up send me a Simpsons arcade cabinet, and
Oh,
it
yeah, you've
is
been mentioning that for like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's super cool. Finally got it in, finally built it. Can't wait to mess around with it more, get some video done for it, as well as write up the review for it. It's just a great piece of equipment. Really, really enjoying my time with it. Besides that, could have a couple of pieces of gear coming in. Just kind of waiting on seeing what boxes are what when they come in, as well as seeing what people are sending. Because I've had some talk onto what different things we may be seeing here soon, as well as the Steam Decks. My Steam Deck's supposed to be coming in on Saturday, so I'm going to mess around with that and maybe do some different coverage for the site now that we finally have one in our hands.
Yeah. Noah?
I am working on graduating and getting a job that pays well out of college, and
That's an important thing.
yeah, it's taken up a lot of, yeah, thank you.
You'll make it. You'll make it. We all did. Yes. I will be playing a bunch of Wonderlands. I am also on the job search myself, so my life is busy also with my child and whatnot. But I'll be playing Wonderlands. I have a guide drafted up. It's already been looked at by our other writers. I just have to clean it up and, put pictures in it and stuff. It is my recommendation for a Berserker build before you start getting into the deep end game. So it is, if you run the Berserker and you're unsure about what kind of build you should make with it, I have a build that has been reliable. I even defeated a raid boss solo. So it works. So I got you. I'm looking forward to getting that done. All right. That's it for us. This is the Part Timers Podcast. Appreciate you listening and or watching. And we will talk to you next week. Deuces.